Adventurous kids, explore with education and learning what a wild life is in the Everglades. I want to explore the Museum of Discovering Science. What plants do butterflies like? I want to know about Key West Adventurous Kids, learning and fun. Adventurous Kids!
Today I'm going to tell you about the Beatles. Have you ever heard of a band so famous that people all over the world still talk about them more than 50 years later? Well, today on this Adventurous Kids episode, we're going to learn about the Beatles. The Beatles were a famous English rock band. The Beatles were a group of four friends from Liverpool, England, who made music that changed the world. Even though they started playing in the 1960s, their songs are still loved by kids and grown-ups today. The Beatles were made up of four members: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr's real name is Richard Starkey. Each one brought something special to the group. John and Paul wrote many of the band's most famous songs. George added beautiful guitar melodies, and Ringo kept the beat steady on the drums. Together, they became one of the greatest music teams ever. Lennon formed a band in Liverpool, England, while in high school in the mid 1950s. McCartney and then Harrison joined the group in the late 1950s. In its early years, the band also had several other members. In 1962, they signed a recording contract with a large music company. At about this time, they chose Starr to replace drummer Pete Best. At first, the Beatles songs were upbeat and fairly simple. The first song recorded by the Beatles was Love Me Do in 1962. Their first hit came the following year when Please Please Me climbed to the top of the British music charts. When the Beatles first started, they played in small clubs, practicing a lot and trying to get better. At first, not many people knew who they were, but the more they performed, the more fans they gained. Soon, crowds were cheering so loudly that the band could barely hear themselves play. This time in history became known as Beatlemania because everyone was so excited about them. Beatlemania happened mostly from 1963 to 1966. The Beatles became widely popular in the United States too after appearing on Ed Sullivan's television program in February 1964. Teenage girls across the country screamed and fainted over them, and the boys copied the Beatles' look. By April 1964, the top 5 hits in the United States were all Beatles songs. One of the coolest things about the Beatles is how creative they were. They didn't just play the same kind of music over and over, they experimented with different sounds, instruments, and ideas. Some of their songs were fun and playful, while others made people think in new ways. Albums like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Abbey Road showed just how imaginative they could be. The Beatles didn't just make great music, they inspired millions of people to try new things. They influenced fashion, movies, art, and even how people talked about peace and kindness. Musicians today still look up to them, and many say the Beatles inspired them to start making music in the first place. The Beatles' last live concert was in 1966. It was at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. The pressures of fame led to the Beatles to break up in 1970. All four continued their musical careers. Lennon with his wife Yoko Ono, McCartney with the band Wings and later as a solo performer, and Starr and Harrison mainly as solo artists. In June 2023, Paul McCartney announced plans to release the final Beatles record. They used new technology to get John Lennon's voice from an old song demo. In October 2023, the song was released to be Now and Then. It was released on November 2, 2023. The music video came out the next day. It got over 8 million views in its first 12 hours. The song quickly became one of the most streamed songs on Spotify. Now and Then was played on many radio stations at the same time. They set a record for the most radio stations to play a song at once. The Beatles are the best-selling music act of all time. They have sold an estimated 600 million records worldwide. Paul McCartney and John Lennon wrote the children's song Yellow Submarine. Ringo was the narrator of some of the Thomas the Tank Engine TV series. Ringo wrote the song Octopus's Garden, which is very popular with children. Although the band eventually stopped playing together, their music continues to live on. Kids today are still discovering their songs, from catchy hits like Yellow Submarine to beautiful tunes like Here Comes the Sun. The Beatles remind us that creativity, teamwork, and imagination can make something magical. So the next time you hear a Beatles song, remember, you're listening to a piece of music history, and who knows, maybe their story will inspire you to pick up an instrument, write a song, or create something amazing of your own. Thank you for listening to the Beatles music. Watching this episode of Adventurous Kids.
What did you learn today?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
What was the most interesting fact?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous